Here.
Trustee Kane,
Here.
Trustee Alexander,
Here.
Trustee Martin, I see you. I don't hear you, but to Trustee Loring.
Here.
Okay.
Trustee Kate just contacted me asking for a link for the meeting. Could you send it to him, please, Beth?
Yeah, Trustee
Not-
Cates.
Trustee Kate, yes.
Yeah.
I would remind meeting participants to please leave their mic muted when they're not speaking. And the first agenda item is the student representative discussion. And Heather, are you going to moderate this?
Thank you, Chair. I will be happy to introduce Tristan Mitchell from University of Maine at Farmington, who is going to walk us through the discussion. And Tristan, if you have any trouble with your screen sharing, please let me know. Both Jamie and I are ready to go if we need to help out. Thank you.
All right. I should be all set for screen sharing. So I wanted to, well, I was the main reason this happened, but we wanted to talk about student engagement today because engagement among students have dropped drastically within the last few years. Many reasons for that: COVID, people being more introverted rather than extroverted. Uh, Most people seem to view college more as an obligation than more like they would treat high school than they would college. In my opinion, it is important to go to events as a college student, and I would argue that it maybe even be one of the most important things to do. And I would say events are arguably, sorry, I'm reading off my speaker notes and I wrote them at yesterday. You get college, you go to college to get worldly experience, to learn and to have a good stepping stone to life. But without that, what are you really doing? You're learning, but you're not making the connections. And I would like to preface this by saying that I'm a student at UMF, so I have a lot of my experience comes from there, and I did my best to get from other reps, but it was kind of hard this summer. So just want to let you guys know that. And there are hundreds of events across campus of any variety. Some of them are game nights for board or video games, art nights, and others are honorariums, which could be for authors or guest speakers. There are frequently people that come for like lectures on things like the AI presentation we had at the prior board meeting. These events are consistently held. They're some weekly, monthly, or annually even. And then so I'd like to talk about clubs really quick. Clubs foster many events on campus. It's not all of them, not all of them, but a great amount of them. Uh, it varies a lot by campus, but club events are more niche and therefore more difficult to get attendees. So I'd like to point that out. Uh, I have R/CA because resident advisors and community advisors, UMF does community advisors or assistants. So, and their events are even harder to get attendees to because they feel very forced from what I've noticed. It is frequent that floor meetings and other CA events have very low attendance, and they should have more realistically. Uh, and there are the great many difficulties. Oop. As I've said earlier, events have very low attendance. Some have no attendance at all. Lounge spaces are very vital to building a community, but I have found that they are not very used. Some campuses have even turned them into more dorm rooms after seeing disuse. I believe that was UMFK or UMPI. It was one of those two. They can be excellent hubs for events and hosting general hangouts, but they're not really used, or they're used by like the same 3 people in one school year. And then funding. Funding events is another challenge. PAs at UMF only get a starting budget of $25 to hold events at, for example. And clubs only get what they are given. They can only get extra funds through special proposals, which can be slow to get through the student government process. And they themselves are limited by policy and what the budget that they have uh, brought forward has said. I don't know what it's like on other campuses for club spending, and I would love to hear more if anyone is aware of that. And then advertising is another major difficulty nowadays. Posters aren't really looked at. Unless they're on direct pathways with on eye level, you have to place them well, or else they aren't going to be looked at. And emails were also difficult to be read consistently. The average student that was not already involved would not really want to look at their email, especially before UMF instituted their new newsletter. UMF was priorly emailed just by the director of student life whenever someone wanted to share an event, and that could lead to like dozens of emails a day just from him. And so a bunch of people's inboxes were flooded with events, and some even blocked his email, which was not a good idea. Getting to coordinate events is also a proven difficulty, as a new group of people without experience is hard to advertise. It's hard to figure out how to reserve rooms. It's hard to get anywhere, really. I'd be interested in doing a sort of seminar for that. So to teach people how to do clubs correctly and such things. Coordinating events. I already said that one, sorry. Uh, and then the final one is connecting with others. It has become prevalent recently that people have had an inability to connect for a variety of reasons. COVID, which became with it online asynchronous classes, has had intense negative impacts on students that we've been seeing. People prefer to sit in their rooms on the internet, and so we need to encourage them to leave them their comfort zone. Sorry. These are existing steps that have been taken. Talent tokens. This is something that was instituted by UMPI. Sorry, I'm starting to feel a little unwell. They're given a 2 attendance at each event and are added to a raffle at the end of year for prizes. Ooh. Incentives are a key to drag people out of their dorm. People love free food and free things. Events like Big Ticket Bingo at UMF are easily the most popular events. Passive events would be things like scavenger hunts and turning it in for prizes. And like an event run by CA at UMF with the Golden Ticket program. where they hid them around the dorm, and when you found a certain amount, you could turn them in for prizes. And for newsletters, we've had the UMF has instituted the Beaver Dam, which replaced the Director of Student Life Many emails. The twice a week newsletter with a form that people place requests for to put in, hold surveys, government elections, and club events. I would recommend putting the token idea to each campus. That would be something I'd like to see. Lounges and events should have additional funding, in my opinion. I know budgets are tight, but it'd be an excellent idea to expand budgets to allow for better events. And I'd like to see events incorporated into classes. For example, creative writing majors at UMF host visiting writers, which are events required to attend by most creative writing professors. Are there any other questions for me or any representative I can convey? And thank you for listening to me, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Tristan,
Sorry.
take your screen sharing down, please, then we can see everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Tristan. Questions for Tristan? Trustee Alexander.
Thank you for the presentation. I was wondering, based on your particular experience at Farmington, whether any of the other student trustees can weigh in on the issue of how club funding is run. Is this pretty much done by the student government deciding how the money is handed out? Or is there an administrative decision-making that goes on there?
This is something I can actually answer well, as I serve at the OFA for UMF right now, which is Officer of Financial Affairs. So the way clubs get funding is we have annual committees called the annual budget committees, ABC. And each year the clubs apply for a budget and they get a certain amount of money, which they are given depending on what they request for. Recently, we've had to cut down on more what we've been offering. But as long as it's within policy, we can generally fund them for whatever they wish.
And who is the we in your description?
The ABC committee, which is run entirely by student government.
Oh, okay, my
Yeah,
understanding.
sorry,
That's all right. Thank you.
no problem.
Other questions for Tristan?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Tristan, for the presentation. I think when I was an RA, I used to say to my students, my residents, I want you to go to 2 clubs twice in the first 6 weeks of school, even if you never go again, because that is how you will meet people, right? Even if you never go again, even if you find a different club, even if you choose a different path, it's how you begin to see faces on campus that and you can engage beyond just your residence hall. I think the question that I have for you is, and maybe it's for the general, I think a lot of this work happens out of the Deans of Students office, right? And gets coordinated, and some of the money I think is student fees, the activity fees that come through on the individual bills. I think the community piece and the concern post-pandemic is also something we see playing out everywhere across our campuses. And I guess my question for you is, what does success look like in your mind, right? When you think about it, because the realities and technological advances of the pandemic are still with us, right? Here we are meeting on Zoom, but is there a sort of a definition of success that you would like to see when it comes to student engagement on campus?
I would personally really like to see at least 5 people at each event, which may seem small for some people, but with UMF having 600 people on campus, 640 in the upcoming year. I think it would be a pretty decent number to even get 5, because a lot of people, as I said, like to hide in their dorms and don't want to leave and just experience college. Just
Thank
that
you. And I
number,
definitely think your food strategy is a strong move.
yes, there's Taco Tuesdays at the landing.
I would come to that. Yes, for sure.
Yeah.
Other questions? If not, thank you very much, Tristan, and we'll turn it over to the faculty who are also going to discuss student engagement, and I don't know who's going to kick that off.
I can start. Thank you, Trustee McMahon. Thanks, Tristan. I think I won't speak for all of my colleagues and the faculty reps, but I agree with a lot of what you said. And our Dean of Students has a term that she uses at a lot of these, especially first week of orientation day events, where she's like, to freshmen, you just have to embrace the cringe, because it is weird, right? It is cringy. There was a time we used this book for our first year seminar class many years ago, and the title of the book was Don't Stand Too Close to the Naked Roommate. And it was actually about, I remember there was something in the book they talked about, dorm life is a cruise you didn't sign up for, but you're like living in each other's spaces. And how do you navigate that? So engagement is hard. As Emily mentioned or Trustee Kane mentioned in her experience as an RA, I teach on UMPE's campus. It's called University Experience. Some other places it's called First Year Seminar, but it's kind of like how to be a college student freshman first semester class. And one of the things I do, and I know I have lots of colleagues who do this too, that they have to go to one student club event and they write me a little response paper. Like, what was it like? I hated it and I'll never go again. They have to go to one athletic event. And it doesn't count if they're actually the athlete. They have to go to an event that they're not participating in. Excuse me. And they have to go to one cultural event, which is, when something from off campus is brought in. It could be a movie, it could be a poet, whatever. And then just because it is about making those connections. And I have lots of anecdotes, which I'm sure my colleagues do, where I've had people who had a horrible roommate and had actually already filled out the withdrawal paperwork and then went to an event. I have one story of a former student of mine who actually met his future wife at this event. Not only was it the reason he stayed on campus and in school, it was the reason he actually has a family now. So it is difficult, and I think it's been compounded by COVID, because our student population now kind of withdrew from a lot of interaction through their high school years, right? They're used to everything being online. And so you have to kind of balance supporting or initiating engagement, but it also has to be organic, right? It can't feel like forced. And that's a very difficult balance, because forcing someone to go to an event and then they don't talk to anyone. How do you make those organic experiences outside of the dorm, or for commuter students not to just drive to campus, go to class, and drive home? How do you create an organic community? And I think that is very challenging in COVID. I know on our campus, and I'm sure on others, some faculty have the option to Zoom into class. We call them the roomies and the Zoomies. And there's people in their dorm room Zooming into class. They have no reason not to like walk across campus and show up in the classroom. So how do we make that an organic connection? And I think we have to kind of poke from all sides of the issue, like force them to go to this, make it interesting, give them good food, give them a prize, but how do we create an organic experience? And it's a big challenge for sure. I'm an advisor for a very active club, and we went on our first trip since pre-COVID just this past spring. And I only had 4 students go. And in the past, I would have 15 to 20 students. But it's hard to get people showing up, participating in fundraiser. It can be difficult. But I'll let some of my other faculty colleagues go ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Yeah, Patrick.
Hi, folks. Thank you so much. So great presentation so far. One parallel I'd like to make to this is with on the teaching level and with service learning, and I see a lot of the same things here, both for sort of on-campus events or service learning, is sort of more attrition over time. And I think one factor, which I think is cogent for UMA, but also a lot of students across the system, is oftentimes students have to pay an opportunity cost to attend these things. So at UMA, sometimes students have to miss work. They might have a night job, or they have to find like childcare to attend things. So that's something I kind of keep in mind as one reason they might not attend. And to Tristan's point, a good point that he made, UMA especially, we're thinking a lot more about neurodiversity. So I also think too that there might be subsets of students who kind of self-select out of these due to high levels of introversion and so on. And I'm certainly not implying that we should pay students to come to campus events, but one thing I've seen on the service learning side is if there is some kind of token or like credit they can earn by attending things, that does increase attendance. So a few years ago in psychology, we had students engage with an organization, Healthy Communities of the Capital Area, and a smoking cessation project. And not only did they get course credit or extra credit, but that organization was actually paying them. And all of a sudden, a lot of students actually wanted to come and be part of that event. So those are just a few things that came to mind. Thanks everyone for your thoughts.
Thanks, Patrick. Other speakers. Yeah, Ivan.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you, Patrick, for this presentation. What I was impressed by what you were talking about is not only engagement or lack thereof in general, but your observation that this engagement has become lower around the time of the pandemic and afterwards. So this is speaking to the psycho-emotional climate of students, and sometimes we don't pay attention to that, but that is a concern, and that's certainly something which is being looked at from the Dean of Students perspective. Now, one thing that I do, and I know a number of my colleagues in the business school, in particular at the University of Maine, do, is emphasize the value of learning leadership in these various activities, leading clubs or participating in clubs and various other activities. So this is something that we have been focusing mostly on clubs and activities related to our profession, but it spreads around the field, and it's important also for other areas as well. So this is an opportunity for students to learn about how they can lead people and how they react to other people, and that's also something that they can put on their resumes once they participate in these activities and have a record to show, and that's going to separate them from the crowd when they go for jobs. So it's also a matter of helping their future professional paths. And this is something that we on the faculty side can certainly emphasize more in the classroom when we talk about future careers.
Thank you, Ivan. Levin.
Yeah, I think that's very wonderful, and I agree with both the faculty and students that clubs are very important. And one school of thought I would go forward with is like when you're having different types of clubs, it's a good idea to look into all the clubs that we already have and see what's going on. Like when we are doing something to change, we want to know like how things are working out for the different students, and if there are preferences between different students, and like different clubs have different activities, different things or events that they're interested in doing. If there are like different students have different preferences depending on their program, depending on their personality, like all those different things. So it will be interesting to know like what are their preferences, like in a data level, like conducting like a survey or collecting some data from the students to see if there's something that we can learn from there, and see what type of activities are getting more, because something that can fit into their schedule and their requirement would be more suitable. So I think it will be interesting to look at those clubs and like do some sort of like survey or ask them like why they're here, like what made them to come to the this particular club, and see like why is it working out for them. And so that would be a little bit more interesting. And I think like the incentives, and that's wonderful. I think like if there's more incentives for the students to come to there, which are like and again, like incentives work, I believe, like for different people. If there's free food, I might be like, well, not free food, but some people like will be more interested in connecting with other people. Some people might be more interested in connecting with them in a different way. So yeah, those are all good thoughts. That's what I think about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other faculty reps on the call want to make a comment? Jeff, do you have any comments you want to make?
I'm hesitant to speak for someone who isn't here, but Professor Staples from USM made some wonderful comments, David, to the students when we met before the last board meeting. Joe Staples, many of you know, teaches in the environmental sciences, and he talked about the centrality of taking students out of the classroom on organized events, university-sponsored events that are both curricular and co-curricular, where they're engaged in activities salient to their classwork, but also are forming friendships at the same time and getting a sense of who their classmates are outside of the classroom and off campus. And it was, he said it better than I'm saying it now, but what some of our chiefs of students would call, or deans of students would call, associational activities, or what, Lisa rightly described as, embracing the cringe, just getting out and doing that with classmates, and in particular in a structured way, often helps to grease those wheels and give students a positive experience. And I just wanted to recommend that to Tristan as one opportunity that many faculty are clearly open to and find valuable in their own teaching, but that also helps to connect the two sides of the student experience, the academic side and the student life and co-curricular side.
Thanks, Jeff. Barbara.
Thinking about this from the board point of view, it might be interesting, off the cuff idea on my part, so not well thought out by any means, for there to be some ability to survey the different universities, the students at different universities, to rank their view of engagement related activities, and to gather from that survey some best practices that students used as examples of what really made a difference for them, and then publishing that and making it available to all the universities so that those best practices could then be perhaps evaluated. I would bet there's a difference in terms of what students expect at Farmington, where lots of students are in dorms, versus UMA, where very few students attending the university are in dorms and, quote, on campus. So there will be very different modes of engagement and views about the importance of it among our campuses. It would be good to find out. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara. Adam.
Thank you all. And Jeff, you were so eloquent that I put my hand down. But so Chair Alexander, one thing every university does is the National Survey of Student Engagement, which does measure some of these activities. At USM, we tried to do that at the department level, where we could try to compare how departments are succeeding, but the response rates were so low that we stopped doing it. But I agree with you, like a general survey and comparison between the institutions would be wise. And I did want to follow up with Jeff on environmental science, which does a field school. The president and I are going, I think, in a couple weeks, and they bring a research methods course to a camp that is closed, Camp Cedar, they keep it open for our students, and they spend 3 days away. And I raise that just because I think it's a model, because I think students won't seek mentorship or seek community, but when it happens without really them knowing it, like Jeff's associationally, I think that's really when it happens. And for universities like UMA and USM, the classroom really has to make a lead. So just to finish off, I'd like to thank anyone on this screen who really showed the vision for the RLEs and UMS Transforms, because that's really a way that we're making this happen through research learning experiences, which are immersive learning. And at USM, we have a big learning assistant program where students work with faculty to help break the science classes and others into smaller groups. And so when you flip the classroom in that way, students get to know each other, and also our advanced students become co-instructors, and so they have more connection to faculty. And most importantly, we've seen like great progress on our DFWs in problematic courses, which is part of the UMS Transform system. So all of that work is having a major impact. And so I am really hoping that as we gather data on those programs, that we can make a case to continue that funding. So it's not just like a great experiment that is unsustainable, but it's one that all of the system schools can keep going. And I'm new here again, but thank you for whoever has done such great work on that. I know that John Volin has really worked carefully with our campus, recognizing that campuses like UMA and USM are quite different from residential campuses, and we've evolved the program so it works for every campus, I believe. So thank you for bringing this topic up. It's a really important one at USM.
Thank you, Adam. Emily, followed by John and Joe.
Thanks, David. Just real quick, in addition to the measurements that Adam just talked about, we also have planned to do, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, in the spring, a survey of first-year students around retention, and with student engagement being such a key factor in why students choose to stay a lot of time and feeling that community, that's called for in the strategic plan and will be happening in the spring as well.
Thanks, Emily. John?
Great. Good morning, everyone. I won't reiterate everything that Adam said, but just to give you a little bit of numbers around the research learning experiences, we have close to 1,500 first-year students taking RLEs this semester, which is phenomenal. Over 20% of first-year students at USM, as an example. And I was hoping we'd get over 100 course sections. We're at 99 course sections. Again, this is the start of our 4th year of RLEs, and they've really taken off. But what I wanted to speak to a little bit is Trustee Alexander's question about surveys. So one thing that all 7 universities do every 3 years is the NESI survey, which really gives a real wonderful chance for us we're done with our students to compare to our peers. So each university gets their set of peers to see how our students are doing, and not only overall engagement, just a wide number of questions. We do that every 3 years. The next time will be in spring of 26. We also we started first destination surveys here about 3 years ago, and that's through a national organization called NACE, which is a career group. That's also done at all 7 universities. The data is analyzed by the Office of Institutional Research here at the University of Maine, and we share all the data, but we share these one-pagers that it's amazing. It tells us among our students, their overall internships that they've had, their experiential learning opportunities, really talks about career opportunities, and shows 6 months how our students, are going out into the workplace or grad school or what have you. The data around that are amazing. Nationally, we look really good with that. We also partnered with the Coalition for Transformational Education 3 years ago, and they partnered with Gallup to develop a survey on overall student well-being. It's the first survey that's focused completely on student well-being, and it connects to Gallup's annual alumni survey that they do. We've done it here twice in 22 and 23. and we do it for first years all the way through seniors, and get a sense of our students' overall being, including their experiential learning opportunities, their connections to professors, to mentors, etc. So there are a number of things that are ongoing and in this area, and be happy someday to just share more of those results if you'd like. Thank you.
Thanks, John. Joe?
Now, this is a really important conversation, and I just read over the weekend an article about Starbucks and the challenges that they have. And I think there's an analogy to what we have as well. So Starbucks was founded as this third place between work and home where people could hang out and really get an experience while they drank coffee. But it has also evolved to a kind of grab and go place where lots of people come in and just want to grab their coffee and move on. And I think that we struggle with that same culture. On the one hand, we want to create this experience, a holistic experience, especially when you're at a residential campus. And yet, at the same time, both our students and faculty and a lot of the culture has driven us towards a grab and go mentality where I got to get in, I got to get my 40 courses, get my 120 credits and my credential, and I'm out. And I think it does require us to think about, hey, what are we doing? What is the business we're in? And what is the culture that we're trying to create? And it may not be the same at different campuses, but it is a subject that is very important for us to think through.
Thanks, Joe. Roger? You're on mute, Roger.
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, if I could. First of all, Joe, thanks for that comment. That's really kind of crystallized some things in my mind. That's interesting. The first one has to do with a little bit of what Joe was talking about, the different experiences of people who live on campus or at least take courses on campus, and those whose primary experience is just as an online student. Are there examples out there on our campuses of successful efforts to gain student engagement, whether it's through clubs or other projects, of students who are primarily online students?
Somebody wants to answer that?
Probably very hard.
Chair Katz, USM is a bit of a hybrid of, Farmington and UMO and UMA. And so we do consider it in all of our publications as a fourth campus. And we've been thinking about that quite a bit. And, it is really challenging. And so we've had some success with low residency hybrid options where content is delivered online, but we do try to bring students to campus for immersive experiences. The other thing that we've tried to work on, but I don't know that it's helpful, is we've had some thought of using some of the digital resources that are embedded in our information systems to create, student groups for things like, working mothers who return to campus where they can connect with each other from their houses online, which, I worry about too much online, but you have to meet students where they are. But you've identified, I think, one of the most important challenges for our new VP of Student Affairs to try to solve that problem.
Right.
And I did, President Farine Money's there. Perhaps you would want to comment on this. I did have one more question too.
Okay, Joe?
Yes, just briefly on this. Several of us, including the presidents, have been talking about what it would look like to have some sort of groundbreaking opportunities for virtual RLEs using some newer technologies that we've not yet fully pushed. And so we're beginning to look at a task force that would start to invent those and think of it as kind of RLE 2.0. But might there be ways to think about all of, for example, our MBA students, although they wouldn't be engaged in RLEs precisely, but the same kind of experiential work happens across across all degree type programs in different ways. So some work starting, Trustee Cates, but not very far along yet.
Thanks. Thank you. My other question related to, I guess, the season in which we find ourselves. I know universities do not necessarily encourage or sponsor political clubs or organizations, but I'm wondering about the existence of groups like students for Republican university students or Democratic university students, or even particular issues which come up, for instance, like the war in Gaza. What's the present state of political engagement on communities through organizations? And is that stronger than it was 3 or 4 years ago, weaker, about the same? Where are we?
Lisa?
Roger, I can speak to one aspect of that if you'd like. So great and timely question. We just met last week with the Chief Student Affairs Officers and invited Paul Chan and our new Associate General Counsel, Lisa Landry, to join us, and they did. We had a great conversation with all of the heads of student life across the system about the topic of engaging students in a constructive way, in a positive way, as they return to campus in the midst of election season and other politically related topics that are on students' minds right now. So Paul and his staff have shared some guidance with our Chief Student Affairs Officers around basic tenets of free speech and discursive activity on a college campus, and we generated a very positive discussion with Paul and Lisa, and took away some talking points and thinking points about how best to engage with students at a very fraught time, as is the case at colleges and universities every 2 or especially 4 years as we roll through election cycles. So that's been very much front and center on the student life side of things, and pleased to say that with some help from our general counsel's office, we are have gotten ahead of it to the extent that we can.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, a couple things. I find I haven't been aware, at least at UMPI, since COVID, about the Democratic Students Organization and the Republican Students Organization. They have been active in the past, and I know that at least in presidential election years, I think it's the Dean of Students organizes vans for going to vote. There has been some work with Main Campus Compact and Vista groups to get students registered to vote, that they can register where they're going to school and vote. So just some information about that. And then I also want to talk about on your previous question, Trustee Katz, about engagement of online students. So in the UMPI Your Pace program, my program, Criminal Justice, requires a field experience. And a lot of the work that they have to do there, reflecting the work they're doing in the field back to our program learning outcomes, replaces the requirement of service learning that I have for my on-campus students. Now, the majority of my Your Pace students are already working in the field, so they don't actually do more. But I would say about 25% of them have to go find an internship experience. And I've had people all over the country and as far away internationally as China who have done that, and I've supervised them academically, virtually on the Your Pace platform, as well as help them as much as I can to get an appropriate internship site. I know our psychology program also has a field work, but it's an option, I believe. So I think online, at least civic engagement, it's not the same as campus engagement, but I think there is an opportunity and even a blueprint to do that civic engagement in a virtual way. So those were my 2 points. Thanks.
Thanks, Lisa. Evan?
I apologize for overspeaking, but one of the other things we've been discussing here, and it might be worth considering at the Board of Trustee level as we are thinking about our digital platforms and the Chancellor's drive for micro-credentials and other kinds of non-traditional certifications, is a lot of universities use what is called a comprehensive learner record, which is beyond the traditional transcript, where students are able to document areas within the co-curriculum, and some universities use a kind of behavioral economics approach where you give students a soft nudge through a soft requirement for participation, and other kinds of skills that students acquire through collaboration and leadership and civic engagement and the like. And it's been an approach that some other universities use to try to kind of foster that kind of participation in campus that doesn't always come out of traditional types of instruction. And I know Jeff and Heather meet regularly with the registrars, and one of the concerns I do have around non-traditional certifications is not just who awards them, but how we store them, and then also make them available to students so that they can post them in things like LinkedIn and the like. And the comprehensive learner record might be a way that we could do that structurally, if and maybe we can all move together as a system as we think about what our platforms are.
Thanks, Evan. Any other comment? Jeff, do you want to have the last word?
I'll just thank everyone for the thoughtful conversation and input, and I hope it's been useful to not only to Tristan but to the faculty representatives as well. This is clearly an ongoing and important subject of conversation, and Tristan will be back around to discuss this further with you and the student representatives the next time that David and I see you. So thank you.
And I would echo that, and thank everybody for their contributions. It's an interesting but complex subject, and one that has a lot of importance for us going forward. So we're a little ahead of the agenda, which is good. But, the next item up is the state of transfer report. That's Jeff and Heather. Jeff, you're going to lead that?
David, thank you. So as I think probably everyone on the screen knows, transfer is a centerpiece of our strategic plan and its goals. It's embedded here in our work plan in Academic and Student Affairs Committee. It's a daily subject of conversation in Estabrook Hall because my boss knows where my office is, so there's no escape, no avoiding. I'm here and he knows I'm down the hall, so we have this conversation on a very regular basis. Transfer is also a key piece of why I was so pleased to be able to hire Heather Ball to join my staff this past March. She began working on this report shortly after coming to work for the system. We wanted to give both an update to trustees on some of the current and ongoing initiatives around transfer that you've heard prior updates on from me and others, but also some of the context for the work of transfer in Maine in particular, with our community college brethren, and a little bit about the national picture, the national backdrop on this subject. So with that, I'll ask Heather to just share a few of the highlights from the report, and she and I together will invite questions from the trustees and anyone else who would like to comment on it. Heather, please.
Thanks, Jeff. Good morning. I don't have slides, and I don't believe I need to share my screen. If you're looking for the report that Jeff has referenced, it's in tab 3 of the committee meeting materials, which is page 45. So thank you for this opportunity to share a few highlights. This is an inaugural University of Maine System State of Transfer report, and this report complements the transfers report, which is more data focused and quantitative. It's been published for the past few years. It's published yearly by our institutional research staff, and that report is available on the UMaine System website, and it's also linked within the State of Transfer report, which is in the committee meeting materials. So this report that we've prepared to share with you for this meeting is really going to focus on those high-level initiatives and the focus of our transfer efforts as of late. So the portability of post-secondary academic credit has become a very critical issue in higher education as of late, given the enrollment patterns of today's college students. Transfer of college credit is not a new phenomenon. Many of us probably transferred credit as well, but it's an activity that now receives a great deal of attention. So there's 3 high-level items that I'd like to share with you. These are each embedded in the state of transfer report. So if you haven't had a chance to read that in depth, I welcome you to do so. And in just a moment, we'll welcome your questions, or if you haven't yet read the report, welcome questions further down the line. So the first item I wanted to mention to you is that our communication and collaboration with the Maine Community College system has intensified. As you have probably seen, the press releases for the Transfer Maine partnership, and that partnership is really laser focused on more than 180 formal transfer agreements between specific programs of study within our 2 systems. The Maine Community College system is now the greatest source of University of Maine system transfer students. And we have many longstanding agreements, which include the general education block transfer and the reverse credit transfer agreement. And just in case you're interested, and we have a transfer page on the University of Maine system site, and that is where those agreements are housed. And we've been working closely with counterparts in the Maine Community College system to make sure that we're both on the same page, we're sharing the same resources, and we're sharing the same information. So that's a really great part of the work that I've been doing since I arrived. I'm enjoying working with the staff there. The second item I wanted to mention to you is technology has really been, I'm not a technology person, but the things that we're doing with technology are very impressive. The first item, as you know, a digital course search tool was launched last year, and this enables students to search for courses by discipline or content area across all campuses. And they can do that without being logged into a UMS, a University of Maine system account, without already having applied for admission and behind the single sign-on. So that means that, for me, I'm from the field of education, and I know teachers may be seeking coursework for certification, and yet they may not be enrolled on a campus. They just may need to take courses for teacher certification. That means they can go to our course search site and they can look for courses, and they don't need to already be behind the single sign-on. Relatedly, a more seamless process is on the way for University of Maine system internal credit transfer, and that should roll out later this year following a successful pilot. And then the last and perhaps most exciting technological update that I can provide is that our IT staff, in collaboration with student records and enrollment staff, very recently launched new software. It's called Raptor, and that's going to enhance the efficiency of transcript processing. It's really a more seamless process for internal transfer. It'll go hand in hand with that process over the year ahead. The last item I wanted to mention very briefly is potential policy changes coming up, which may come onto your radar later this year. So over recent years, there's been changes in policy that have occurred at the U.S. Department of Education level and flowed through the Council for Higher Education Accreditation, also known as CHIA. And these changes have paved the way for revision to the University of Maine System Administrative Practice Letter XD. Those federal changes have eliminated formal distinctions between regional and national accrediting agencies. So with all credit and thanks to the University of Maine System Transfer Officers Group, with whom we work very closely, there will be a proposed revision to this APL that is coming into the limelight shortly. That proposed revision has been drafted. It will be shared with our Faculty Governance Council soon. And if it is approved, it will allow for greater transferability of academic credit for students who have previously completed coursework at institutions that are nationally, but not regionally accredited. And as you know, our regional accreditor is NECHI, and Vice Chancellor St. John and I met with a representative from NECHI not too long ago to ensure that everything is aligned with their expectations as far as this proposed administrative practice letter revision. And so just to bring this to a close, I just wanted to mention the strategic plan, so the preponderance of activity that is currently or soon to be underway in the realm of transfer that I've mentioned in this portion is directly connected to Commitment 1, Action 5 of the strategic plan. That's the strengthening of pathways to our universities, but it's also very closely connected to Commitment 2, academic programs, and Commitment 5, unified accreditation, because enhancements in the transfer processes will have implications for those areas. So we're really excited for these recent initiatives and the future opportunities. There's collaborative and technological and policy developments, and they all have what's the best part of it is they have a student-centric focus. So everything that I mentioned to you is designed to make the process for students more efficient, more student-friendly, and to prevent things like loss of credit and transfer. So we'll be working hand in hand with our offices of student records and of course our faculty to optimize affordability, equity, and quality for our students and for our educational programs. So that's all I have for you. Thank you. We'll welcome your questions.
Thanks, Heather. Questions from the trustee? Barbara? You're on mute, Barbara.
The hand and the mute button, I have to move. Sorry. Thank you. This is helpful background information for sure, just so I understand some of the initiatives going on. And I'm looking forward and wonder when we would at the committee or the board level see the actual mechanisms by which you're going to, and the measurements by which you will incremental improvement in transfer outcomes. How are we going to measure that? I mean, that is the board's big picture result of a lot of what you're describing here. And then with regard to commitment to action for goal 4.1, and how are we going to, and when are we launching the programs that will measure positively or adversely affecting enrollment in the same field and the ease of transfer, including but not limited to the Maine community college system. So I was hoping to see some more detailed presentation of what data you're going to gather and what degree of incremental improvement we might be expecting from these initiatives that you've eloquently described.
Heather, I can take that one. Trustee Alexander, thank you for that feedback. The two primary metrics for transfer are growth in transfer numbers and reduction of barriers to transfer activity. So what you'll see next month when Vice Chancellor Dorsey and I present an update on KPIs and metrics before the full board is a set of carefully projected transfer growth numbers over time, and an update on past, current, and future removal of barriers to transfer activity. Those are the metrics for transfer within and across our system. As to your second point, your reference to the effect of enrollments on existing programs when new programs are approved, that's actually one of the updates being shared today later in this meeting under tab 5. So I'm happy to say you'll have an answer to that very shortly.
Roger.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Again, a couple of questions, if I could. First of all, on the articulation agreements, we've been hearing about this and following it for some time now, and the numbers keep going up and up and up, which is great. We see the pathway, I guess it's up to something north of 180 at this point. But I'm not sure too many of us have a sense of what real success looks like. I mean, if you could wave a magic wand tomorrow and knock down some of these barriers, we would have how many articulation agreements in place? What's a good result like in a year? What's a great result look like in a year? What barriers are keeping us from achieving those numbers? And lastly, what, if anything, can we as a board do to help get those numbers higher? And great work so far, but what can we do collectively to increase them?
So Trustee Cates, the board has just done this summer the biggest thing that it could have done to support transfer activity, which is to enthusiastically back the Transfer Me agreement we just signed with the Maine Community College system. The idea that the chancellor arrived at last fall was simple math. So we can keep increasing the total number of program to program articulation agreements across the system up to the point where we have one for everyone with everyone. We'd have a couple of over 1,000 at that point if we did it that way. But articulation agreements require continuous care and feeding because they become outdated really quickly. You're going back to faculty, asking them to update and remap the curriculum and other transfer equivalencies for those agreements. In the end, to make sure they're all continuously up to date at all times, it's an enormous amount of work, and it has to be done almost weekly throughout the entire year to make sure that all of that is being tended the way that it should be. The chancellor's idea was to provide a way within the existing faculty authority over their courses and their programs, within our existing transfer pathways and articulation agreements, to universalize the opportunity for Maine Community College students to enroll in a program at one of our universities. So whereas we run up against, on the one side, the problem of just enormity of scope, and also the problem of lack of fit. So if you're majoring in diesel engine mechanics at Northern Maine Community College, we don't have a corresponding program for you in one of our 4-year degree programs. But with the Transfer Maine agreement, again, building on what already exists and what faculty and provosts have already approved, we can provide a mechanism for helping students identify programs for which they qualify at universities within our system that have a program they're interested in, and create a defined, simple, efficient mechanism for getting them enrolled in those programs. And that's the key difference here. So my goal over time would be to make sure that the articulation agreements that we have are accurate, which really reflects on our provosts who do an enormous amount of work to make sure that's the case, but also to take full advantage of this new and unprecedented global agreement between the two systems, so that we're not asking faculty or provosts to do more and more incrementally over time, but we're serving all students through one mechanism in the most effective way possible.
Further question, Barbara?
Thank you. So a follow-up question would be to ask Jeff and Heather, what are the barriers that you're finding? I mean, what is it that is your most difficult thing to do to implement the obvious intent about increasing transfers and making it more efficient, and trying to integrate this among all these 7 university systems? What are the barriers, and what can be done as next steps to address them?
Great question, Barbara. So I'll share the biggest barrier in my view, but then I have to offer a compliment in the next breath. So Main Street, some of the limits of our technology within Main Street, and then very next thing I say, our new CIO has been extraordinary so far, hitting the ground immediately, beginning to tackle those barriers, reconceive our understanding of how we're going to repave Main Street, what we can do to actually remove structural impediments within Main Street to the free flow of data from student records office to student records office across our system, so that provosts and registrars and financial aid officers and bursars, everyone has what they need to support efficient and effective transfer.
Thanks, Bill. A question from my perspective would be, when I read the transfer report, I was amazed that, I'll quote, those with a prior associate degree typically took between 10.1 and 10.8 years to complete a bachelor's degree. Do we have any national benchmarks to compare that against? it just seems like an extraordinarily long period of time to get an extra 60 credits. And I just wonder if there's something in our system or whether that's the norm.
There are places where that has been the norm. In fact, Trustee McMahon, when I was at the University of Maine several years ago, under former leadership, we made a decision to close down a degree completion program because the average time to degree was approaching 10 years, and students were taking on considerable student loan debt in order to complete the program. In many cases, they were returning adult learners whose potential time in the workforce was relatively shorter than that of other learners, and we thought it was a bad business all the way around and not supportive of good student outcomes. And there are programs like that. It's only really been in recent years, candidly, the last 10 years or so, with the rise of a greater focus on adult degree completers as a distinct population of students, where universities have begun to support them in that way. But we are still encountering, and our faculty certainly encounter, people who come back after a decade or more away with an associate's degree, who want to come back and earn a degree, and even then can, for reasons of family obligation or financial constraints, can only do so piecemeal over time, and it's a long road for quite a few of those students.
Okay. Other questions? If not, Heather and Jeff, thank you very much indeed. Pass it over to Jeff again on the multi-university programs report.
Thank you. This next report is a briefer update, but also one that sits in our work plan. So you'll hear about this from us annually. With all credit to Jamie for writing this one, an update on our multi-university programs. I've asked her, as I did with Heather, to share some highlights. And then when Jamie's finished, I will share one update for the trustees that I think you'll find very helpful around our plan for assessing multi-university programs under our new strategic plan and in accordance with our faculty expectations for support for multi-university program assessment.
Thank you, Jeff, and thank you all for taking the time to learn about this with us. So, as Jeff said, this is the first time that we are delivering this multi-universities programs report. It is designed to deliver information to the ASA and the BOT on the many happenings across our campuses that are bringing together our universities and programs in partnership. This is all a large part of unified accreditation and, of course, the strategic plan. This report does fulfill the criteria from commitment number 1, commitment number 2, and commitment number 5 within the strategic plan. Most importantly, under commitment 5, it's supporting the development of new multi-university academic programs, and that's what we're here for today. So the report is actually broken out into 3 separate sections. Section 1 is outlining the current state of multi-university course offerings. So these are the places where a student can engage with academic opportunities offered on a campus that is not their home campus. It's typically done through a process called cross-linked courses, meaning that the course actually appears in the student's list of available courses when they sign up on their home campus. They could be distance learning. They could be an opportunity where the student does go and engage on that campus itself. But lots of opportunities there. This is an ever-expanding portfolio of classes that students can take. And we hope to continue growing that over time. There is a brief outline in the report itself on the growth in those programs over the last couple of years. Again, this is something that we want to encourage as often as possible so that our students have the opportunity to experience from faculty and experts on other campuses. Our second section is our multi-university programs. These are full academic offerings, even degrees, that students can engage with that are offered through the help and collaboration of multiple different campuses in our system. So this could be something like the new THOR minor, tourism, hospitality, and outdoor recreation. This is a minor that was just approved through all 7 of our faculty senates, through all 7 of our university processes, and onward through the Chief Academic Officers Council and the VCAA, making sure that a minor in tourism and hospitality is available to every student throughout our entire University of Maine system. And these students can engage with courses throughout the system, meaning that a student at Farmington can engage with courses that are offered through Fort Kent in order to really have a robust learning experience. Finally, we have multi-university initiatives, and these tend to be a little bit more back of house. These are opportunities where our administrative procedures might be able to be collaborated upon and improved by several to all of our campuses working together. A great example of a multi-university initiative was Direct Admit, where financial aid officers and admissions officers and enrollment management from all 7 of our universities have worked together to create something beneficial for the entire state of Maine. And these are the places that we continue to identify where we can all work together to really create something new and exciting for the state of Maine. Transform Maine would be another one of these multi-university initiatives where we're all continuing to work together. So I'm going to turn it back to Jeff so that he can talk a little bit about assessment and next steps as we move forward on this report.
Jamie, thank you. One update on assessment, because several trustees, including trustees on this call, have asked in recent months, and actually going back to last spring, how, as we develop multi-university programs, how are we ensuring that quality assessment is taking place? What support are we providing for that? So trustees may recall that we have a group called the System-Wide Academic Advising Committee, or SWAC, one of my favorite acronyms here in the University of Maine system. SWAC was formed in the months leading up to our 2022 NECHI visit because we needed a body that represented assessment and institutional research staff from across our system. These are university level people. I meet with them monthly to talk about subjects like this. When THOR was approved, as Jamie noted, by the last of the 7 universities this past spring, it gave us our first truly system-wide academic offering, in the sense of all 7 universities offering the same minor to any student anywhere across our system. So we need to have a process in place for supporting faculty evaluation of the THOR program. So I went to SWAC. They had some wonderful ideas. And this group is, for presidents, this group is Susan King from USM, Deb Allen from UMaine, Lauren Gibson from UMPI, David Presby, UMA, leaders in assessment and institutional research across the system. That's SWAC. I've asked SWAC to develop, in partnership with our THOR faculty leadership group, a proposed method for evaluating the THOR minor. So later this month, my team and the SWAC group and the THOR leadership, led by Tracy Mishu and her colleagues, are meeting to work out a model whereby we can support, from university level experts, a system-wide evaluation of program outcomes in the THOR minor as it begins to be delivered across our system. It's a major step forward because we haven't done this before. It directly meets goals within our strategic plan and also directly meets an obligation to NECHI. So I'm very happy to see this happening and look forward to working with that group on a positive process. David, we'd be happy to answer any questions that trustees may have.
Questions, no trustees? Barbara? You're on mute, Barbara.
Yeah. So I'm looking at this table, cross-linked course sections, fall 2022, summer 2024. And I'm looking at numbers, but in the future, providing the numerator without the denominator is not really very helpful, to be blunt. And I would very much appreciate the scope and scale built into the presentation of this sort of information. So I know this is like 0.01% or 5.9 or whatever. That would be helpful. And then just a comment on Jeff's description of the detailed work that is ongoing to evaluate this multi-university program. It sounds very intensive, time and resource intensive. And I'm hoping that in the future, and maybe you're thinking about this based on this initial idea, to build in the criteria for evaluation in the development of the program, so you don't need another committee to figure it out. So that's sort of my obvious comment, I guess I would say. Thank you.
No, Trustee Alexander, we are on the same page on that point. So thank you.
Other questions of Jeff? Jamie? Can somebody give us the up-to-date direct admit number?
355 as of this morning.
You asked and the answer, David?
Let me just explain that number in a different way. We directly admitted about 900, slightly less than 1,000 direct admits. And to have a harvest of that number, the 355, is really quite amazing. And we declare victory.
And I think the Board of Trustees would agree with you, Chancellor. Congratulations. Any other questions on this subject? If not, Jeff, you want to go to the strategic plan update?
Thank you. These are both relatively brief, Trustee McMahon, but we did want to continue to show progress, and you'll see it written into our work plan when we get to that tab on meeting goals of the strategic plan. So one of our goals in the plan has us updating the timeframes for academic program reviews, university by university. Not that they all have to be completed by a particular point in time, but that every university be up to date on its plan for doing so. All credit for this one goes to the provosts. They worked individually with their teams to share summary information about where they are on their plans. Provost Volin shared a resource document with us that's used by programs at UMaine preparing to do this work. President Hadeen shared an actual spreadsheet of how this is managed at Fort Kent, which is very helpful for people to see as an example of a resource. We have an update on this subject from every one of our universities. Every one of our universities, as of today, has updated its time frame in keeping with this strategic plan goal and is on a path to evaluate academic programs along a known timeline with known resources. And we have, as to use the Chancellor's good words, on this particular goal in the plan, we are happy to declare victory. We have done what the plan asked us to do. Again, all credit to the provost for their work on this one.
Any question? Barbara.
I was struck at the differences among the material that you submitted to us, and the degree of depth by some, and the lack of a lot of detail in others. And I'm wondering what the system office might be doing about that.
So, Barbara, thank you. I mean, we asked each provost to submit the information that was relevant to the process updates that they were making and to the established timelines that they have. I did not ask the provost to accommodate a particular structure or follow a particular model of submitting that information. One of many tasks that befell the provost over the summer, several of them coming from me, it'd be more helpful in the future for the board to see the information for a report like this coming forward in like form, university by university. I'd certainly be happy to talk with you about that, but thank you.
Well, absolutely. I mean, it was very difficult for me to deal with what I was looking at from the board's perspective. So an outline of what it is that is going on and the uniformity of an approach seems sort of at a minimum of what we need to expect here. And to the extent you have some preliminary material here that then allows the system working with the presidents to come up with something that has the ability of understanding the final, what am I looking at here? What is the result of all of this material? That would be more helpful from the board's perspective.
Understood.
Distinguish the detailed level material that you may be dealing with at the system staff level. So thank you.
Barbara, thank you. No, and that's a shortcoming on my part. So I can I read Provost very well. It's one of my many talents and abilities. I was able to sift through everything that the individual provost shared with me and just do mental checks that pretty rapidly that they had fulfilled the charge. But to your point, a summary that is a little bit more comprehensible for trustees who haven't been engaged, understandably, in the arcane world of academic program reviews. I'll certainly do that the next time around. Thank you for that feedback.
Other question? If not, Jeff, do you want to continue?
Certainly. And here's the item that Trustee Alexander mentioned previously. So one of our goals in the plan is to track the effect of enrollments in new academic programs on existing programs in the same field. And all I can say about this report is it is definitely a model, but we intend to refine it in future years. So the structure of what you see in board materials is just the first instance of this, and it will get more detailed and also more formalized as we go forward. But what we needed to do is pick a point in time. We chose fall of 2022 as we were developing this new strategic plan, and we looked at programs, a small number of programs that fit the description. They had been developed and launched in the time since then, and we are looking at the effect of their enrollments on other programs in the same field. How are those enrollments being impacted? I will say several provosts, and they are all right, immediately pointed out that an N of 1 year or an N of 2 years is not, it's not valid data, it's not relevant data, it's just a starting point. So I share this with you simply to show that we have developed a mechanism that we can refine and use going forward, and we have met the goal within the strategic plan to do so. But this is one case where both time and refinement will be very helpful to us as we use this resource going forward.
Thank you. Question? Okay, moving on, Jeff.
Thank you. We have put forward for your consideration the work plan, the ASA work plan for the coming year. Trustees will see, I think the main thing I would comment on is that consent agenda items and program proposal items. So ASA items for committee action, and then items moving forward from there for board action are in red. And also by design, trustees, we did not attempt, there would be no way that I could tell you on August 26th at what pace we will complete various initiatives underway, either being worked on by my staff with end users across the campus, or my staff with the provosts, or other combinations of people. There is no way to put in the actual plan, and here is when this strategic plan goal will be completed, this will be completed, this will be completed. As I think the trustees know, there are a significant number of academic and student affairs related goals in our strategic plan, and we are taking them on as we're able. It's an ongoing negotiation with our very helpful, valiant and long-suffering provosts, who are almost always part of whatever we're doing to fulfill the next goal. And I'm mindful about pacing. and getting things done in a way that is workable given current loads campus by campus. So all that to say, everything else I think in the work plan is self-explanatory. Strategic plan updates will come forward to you in advance of each ASA meeting or sooner than that as we have more immediate news to share. But we wanted to get the work plan out to you in August in advance of the start of the new academic year. And I'm happy to answer any questions you have about it.
Barbara?
I couldn't find the work plan. Where is it?
Jamie, do you know the tab number?
There was a tab 6 about it, but when I clicked on it, nothing happened.
It is currently available in tab 6 on the website. I'll send that to you right now, Barbara, and
Well,
that way you can have it in front of you.
It's not possible to provide any consensus on our work plan without seeing that document, and it wasn't included in the PDF for this meeting. So
It's in Diligent. It's I'm looking at it in Diligent.
I have it. I got it in Diligent as well.
I don't use that system. Sorry.
It's on page 84 in Diligent.
I don't have that.
I just put the link in the chat.
Maybe we could have this decided at the next meeting after am I the only one who did not review this document?
I certainly reviewed it. I don't know. Emily, you reviewed it, I take it?
Yes, I did. I'm happy to defer whatever is easiest for the group, but I did see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with deferring. Jeff, you can live with that, right?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay. Are there any questions on the work plan from Emily? Are you comfortable with it?
I'm very comfortable with it, and I have talked with Jeff about how the strategic plan is reflected in the work plan of the committee, as it is in all the committees. The items that were assigned to this committee are reflected in it, and I feel confident in that. So yeah.
Okay. So it's 10:30. We're about half an hour ahead, so why don't we take a 10-minute break? I'm sure people have things they'd like to do.
David, I will just flag for you. I have a conflict at 11 that I have to depart, so I don't know when you're going to land on the voting items, but if it made sense.
Okay. Well,
I don't want to lose those into like 11 to 11:15 because I have a hard stop.
Let's not take a break then.
David, with Roger here, we do have a quorum. Beth and I had an exchange about this about a half an hour ago. Beth, is that still accurate? Even if we lose Emily, we can vote.
We've lost Kelly as well.
Kelly has dropped off for a short period, for about half an hour.
I apologize. I have a standing at 11 on Mondays that I can't.
So let's just move straight ahead and then we do the best we can. So could I have a motion for the meeting to go into executive session under the provisions of 1 MRSA section 4056A to discuss the evaluation of personnel and the consideration and discussion of appointments, evaluations, employments, and duties?
So moved.
Moved by Trustee Alexander. Is there a second? Second by Trustee Kane. Could the clerk please take the roll?
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
Trustee Kane,
Yes.
Trustee Alexander,
Yes.
Trustee Loring,
Yes.
Trustee Cates.
Yes.
The motion carries.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody for participating. We will be in executive session probably about an hour. We are now back in public session. And I would like to read a motion. This is about tenure at the time of hire, associate professor in the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, I'll read the text of the proposed resolution that the Academic and Student Affairs Committee forwards this item to the September 15th, 16th, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting for approval of the following resolution. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee and approves tenure at the time of hire associate professor in the Department of Communication Sciences and Disorders, effective June 1, 2024. May I have a motion?
So moved.
Move trustee Alexander. May I have a second?
Second.
Second, trustee Cates. Could any discussion? Could the clerk please take the roll?
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Loring,
Yes.
trustee Alexander,
Yes.
trustee Cates,
Yes.
motion carries.
Thank you. The next item is tenure at the time of hire associate professor in the Osher School of Music. Are there any questions or discussion on this? If not, I will read the text of the proposed resolution. That the Academic and Student Affairs Committee forwards this item to the September 15, 16, 2024 Board of Trustees meeting for approval of the following resolution. That the Board of Trustees accepts the recommendation of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee and approves tenure at the time of hire associate professor in the Osher School of Music, USM, effective September 1, 2024. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Moved by trustee Cates. May I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by trustee Loring. Any discussion? If not, could the clerk please take the roll?
Trustee McMahon,
Yes.
trustee Alexander,
Yes.
trustee Loring,
Yes.
trustee Cates,
Yes.
the motion carries.
Thank you very much. And that is the,
Trustee Martin,
Yes, I'm back.
okay. Okay, the motion,
we're just about to conclude the meeting, but thank you very much for coming back.
Okay. Thanks for coming back.
Thank you all.
Coming back for the vote.
Thank you all for your participation today and enjoy the rest of your day. I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.